Welcome everyone, thank you so much for joining me. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to World Affairs in Context on Substack and on Patreon for extra content. You will find more content there and you will be able to join our community. I would love to see you on those two platforms. Now let's get to the topic of this video. The credibility of the EU is disappearing fast. I frequently discuss the emergence of multipolarity and alternative financial settlement platforms that many nations of the global south, or more accurately, the global majority, are seeking and creating as the result of Washington weaponizing the US dollar via economic coercion. But right now, we have to open our eyes and we have to look very closely at what the EU is doing with the funds that it seized from Russia. Nearly $300 billion worth in Russian sovereign assets. Most of it sits in Belgium's Euroclear. The EU may approve effectively a theft of these frozen sovereign assets as early as Thursday of this week, just within days.
There's only one path to achieve a just peace for Ukraine and for Europe. We must continue to empower Ukraine's resistance with political, financial and military support.
Here is a report by CNBC. The European Council is committed to finding ways to help address Ukraine's pressing needs for 2026-2027, including for its military and defense efforts. It therefore calls on the Commission to present as soon as possible concrete proposals involving the possible use of the cash balance associated with the immobilized Russian assets. A draft document seen by CNBC stated, the document forms the basis for conversations among the 27 EU heads of state due together in Brussels Thursday. We have to watch closely here, and we have to understand that stealing foreign funds to finance a proxy war will be the demise of Western-led financial institutions. Why? Well, this is because these decisions are heavily politicized, and they go against the principle of financial institutions providing safe haven for foreign nations to store their assets. It's very, very simple. No one will trust them. A theft necessitates a response, you would agree, including punitive measures, which will likely be a mirror response from Russia. Russia may seize Western-held assets currently in Russian possession, but this kind of theft also breaks global trust. And that's what I want to emphasize. No one will trust Western banks with their money after this. After the EU sanctions you and then steals your money, how stable of a system is that? Would you trust them with your money? This week, the EU is pushing very hard to effectively steal frozen Russian sovereign assets in order to finance the proxy war on Russia via Ukraine.
We need a more structural solution for military support. And this is why I have put forward the idea of a reparations loan that is based on the immobilized Russian assets. The loan would not be dispersed in one go, but in tranches and with conditions attached. And we will strengthen our own defense industry by ensuring that part of the loan is used for procurement in Europe and with Europe. Importantly, there is no seizing of the assets. Ukraine has to repay the loan if Russia is paying reparations.
A telling article has been published in the globalist outlet Project Syndicate. Its content is not very original. It's yet another rehashing of the familiar arguments about the need to confiscate Russian assets and to transfer them to Ukraine as soon as possible. And of course, also to Ukraine's quote-unquote friends, its partners, who naturally would be the first to benefit. We advise Western leaders to seize the moment and follow through. They can impress us once again by making a concrete decision at the European Council meeting later this month. A reparations loan based on the frozen Russian funds is the right choice morally, and this is very curious that it appeals to morality here, financially and legally. Is also good politics. Today's Western leaders can meet this moment in history just as the victorious Allied leaders did in the last century, the article declares. Laughable, absolutely laughable. And don't even get me started on the revisionist views of World War II victory here. Naturally, the argument itself doesn't stand up to scrutiny. It doesn't. It's enough to recall that after World War II, reparations were imposed on a state that had capitulated in the war, a regime declared criminal by the tribunals of the victorious powers. But what's more important is who's offering such advice to Europe. Merely Vladislav Rashkovan, who is a Ukrainian financier and deputy executive director of the International Monetary Fund, who represents a group of European countries. And the issue is not just that such proposals could destroy Europe's image as a safe haven for global assets. About 175 billion euros, roughly 204 billion US dollars when converted in cash, has matured from frozen Russian assets this month. And this week, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen already proposed a bold next step. She wants to transform 170 billion euros in Russian assets currently frozen in Euroclear into a reparations loan linked to Ukraine's next IMF program. Her call was actually quickly echoed by Germany's Chancellor Friedrich Merz. He suggested an interest-free loan backed by these same frozen assets, one that Ukraine would actually repay only once Russia paid reparations. What's very interesting here, and I'm not sure if this is due to incompetence or a lack of just historic background, what's very interesting is that reparations assume that Ukraine would emerge as a winner, despite the fact that President Trump, for example, just yesterday said he does not believe that Ukraine can win against a nuclear superpower. This is not news, it's just common sense. According to Bloomberg, the United States appears to be stalling the European Union-led plan for G7 nations to steal frozen Russian assets. Data from the Kiel Institute showed that between July and August of this year, Ukraine received about 7.5 billion euros in financial and in humanitarian support. Of the newly allocated funds, 86% came from EU institutions. The United States has effectively dialed down its financial support for Zelensky's regime, and Europe now is pushing hard to provide more funds to continue the war. In Europe, the UK, France, and Germany are the ones who push the hardest to seize and to use Russian frozen assets. Let's see if they succeed. I will keep you posted. I hope that you consider supporting my work. Become a subscriber here on YouTube, on Substack, and on Patreon. I would love to see you on my alternative platforms as well. You will find them linked in the description below. I'll see you back here tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.